Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of Scott Talk. And I do mean everybody, everywhere, or no matter where you are. Welcome. Today, I've got Michael Beck. He's the singer of Kings of Dust, and he was a singer for the Red Dragon Cartel with Jakey Lee from Ozzy Osbourne. So, Michael, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Problem. Thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate it.
This is cool because it's a couple days before Christmas, and it's in the morning. So I'm just telling everyone what's up here. And I originally thought I would have no time this week to do anything, and it turned out I have all this free time. So I was able to actually get you in here before January, like we had originally talked about. So this is cool that you had a few minutes to come on as well.
That's kind of been the whole year, hasn't it?
Right. It's just all crazy up and down. You never know what's going to happen.
I thought I'd be on tour most of the year, and
right,
none of that
Yeah,
happened.
exactly. So it's like you're at your studio right now. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, Sound Vision Recording in Mesa, Arizona.
Cool. And that's where you guys do most of your stuff, right?
It is. This is my day job. So this is what I do when I'm not working furiously with Kings of Dust. So
okay. So how has that been with the pandemic? Are you still getting bands in there, or has that changed too? Or
as far as the studio?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been good. I mean, obviously it's been a little, there's been some right turns and you have to go about things a little differently.
Right.
But that's the one other side to this is a lot of the hobby bands have kind of taken some time off, but the career bands, which is most of the stuff that I do, I mean, they're trying to make best use of their time. So they're actually trying. So whenever this thing is done, they're ready to roll.
Right. So let's go back in time a little bit. I want what are some of your influences early on in your teenage years that kind of got you into music? And I mean, were you always a singer, or did you maybe start off on guitar? Or?
I actually started as a guitar player when I was I kind of played on and off, since I was like 10, and then when I was maybe 13 or so, I picked it up and started actually playing a little bit more. I was in my first band when I was about 15, 16 in high school, and started out as a guitar player, but slowly morphed into a more of a singer position.
Yeah.
I mean, early on, I'm probably like most guys my age, Kiss is the entry point. That's where I kind of really went from listening to music to really listening to music and diving in a little bit further than just surface. And then I listened to primarily Kiss for a long time.
Right.
But my biggest influences are definitely the biggest one probably being Steve Walsh from Kansas. I really devoured those records, Leftover Return, Point of No Return.
Right.
I remember listening to those and going, wow, if that's a singer, if I want to be a singer, I got to sound like that. And I don't think I do, but hopefully I stole enough to make it passable.
Well, you got your own unique voice, and it's terrific. This is just me. And it's not a comparison to Jeff Tate, but you have some, I guess you'd call them inflections in your voice time to time that remind me of Jeff Tate. And I'm a huge Jeff Tate fan. So of course I'm going to like you, right?
Well, then, all right, whatever gets you in the door, man, that's all right.
Right. And all the previous bands you mentioned, I'm into all that stuff too. But you know.
Yeah, Steve and David Lee Roth is another one. Hopefully, but lyrically and song structure and stuff like that, he doesn't get nearly enough credit as a lyric writer. His lyrics are, in my opinion, the best out there.
Yeah, very good, very good. Red Dragon Cartel. How did you get in that band with Jakey Lee? How did that all happen?
Well, it was through a couple of different avenues. I've known Greg, my bass player in Kings of Dust, Greg Chaisson. Yeah. I've known him we were actually writing material before Red Dragon Cartel came along. Then he was asked by the band. They were coming through town and they were doing a one-off show. Well, I should say one-off. They were on tour, and they were doing a show here in Tempe, which is right by where we are, right outside Phoenix. And they asked Greg to play the show. There was something going on with their bass player. They asked Greg to play the show. And, you know, that's half of Badlands. So there was a lot of what the hell going on. And so they actually, when the band came in, they came in a couple days early, excuse me, and rehearsed in my studio.
Wow.
Right back there, and rehearsed the show in my studio. And I mean, I'd known Greg for a while, but seeing Greg and Jake play together, wow. Right. I mean, and I talked to both of them, and they've said this both in interviews. It was like, I don't think they'd played together since like the mid 90s. And it was like they had seen each other yesterday. Wow. It was pretty amazing. It really was. And they are a pretty, a force to be reckoned with for sure. It was pretty incredible. So they did the show, and it was cool, and you know, it was great. And then they asked Greg to do some other shows a little later on in the year, and he said yes, and did. And as time went on, they had problems with Darren, their singer, and Greg told me, yeah, you know, they're looking for a singer. I can get you an audition, but I can't get you the gig. This is Jake's show. So right. I knew Jake a little bit, you know, just from that time here. And I auditioned and sent my stuff in, and I got the gig. Wow. And unfortunately, sometime after that, Greg got sick and had to kind of bow out of the band, which was a huge bummer to me because I was really looking forward to the Jake and Greg show.
Yeah.
So they brought in another bass player, and we did a run up the East Coast. We did another one into Canada, and I probably spent, it was maybe 4 months with the band, and decided that at the time that it wasn't, as much as I hate to say it, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a cover singer, which really, you know, at that time, that's what that was. Right. I mean, you're covering a gamut of singers, including Ray Gillen from Badlands, my favorite of the handful for sure. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do my own material, and the direction of the band I wasn't really into what was going on. So, but wish them all the best. And they took off one direction, I took off another. And at some point, you know, Greg kind of got through, he had a cancer, pretty severe one, and fought his way through it. And on the other side, we decided, okay, Kings of Dust, here goes. It's great being with, playing with Jake. That was definitely a bucket list thing for me. Being able to play a lot of the songs that, you know, Highwire and Southern Sun and Rumbling Train, the stuff that are some of my favorite material. Being able to play it with the guy that wrote it was a treat for me, especially. Jake is, I mean, he is who he is for a reason.
Yeah, he's got this very unique style, and he's always kicked major ass, man. I mean, it's pretty hard to replace Randy Rhoads, right?
Absolutely. And in your own way. I mean, I've never seen a guitar player literally just attack the guitar. It's like he's in a brawl with it. But a lot of finesse at the same time. I mean, like I said, there's a reason we're still talking about Jakey Lee.
Right. Yeah.
Who he is for a reason. And I actually hear a lot of his, in a different way, I hear a lot of his 70s influences in Ryan from Kings of Dust. So that was a great natural fit and worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go next, was your new album and the guys in the band that we haven't talked about yet. We talked about Greg, but yeah, we got Ryan McCray, the guitar player, Jimi Taft, the drummer. How'd you meet those guys?
Well, Ryan was kind of in the fold before the whole Red Dragon Cartel thing happened. He was writing with Greg and I. So him coming back into it was as natural a fit as it could have been, and was like, oh yeah, this is what's supposed to be happening. So, and then we had actually struggled a bit with drummers and auditioned several and some really great drummers. But nobody that really fit the bill. There's a difference between having a really good drummer and having a really right drummer for the project. And when Greg had played with Jimi way back in the day, in fact, when they were, I think they were recording Voodoo Highway, Jimi and his band was in the same studio. And so they knew each other, kind of peripherally from there. So again, when Jimi came in, his swing is exactly what this band needed. It became, it's like when Ryan came in, you start playing together and it's like, oh yeah, that's what that's supposed to sound like. Yep.
Yeah. It's like Ringo with the Beatles, right? You just, when you find that perfect drummer for your band, because like Ringo, I guess technically, I'm sure there are better drummers out there, right? But for the Beatles, he was the best drummer in the world that band could have had, right? So it sounds like you found your Ringo.
I find my Ringo. Yeah, and all four of the guys are, I mean, as a band, a really enjoyable band to play in. That we've all kind of had our success in, one form or another in the music industry previously. So having this band come together now, it's really cool. There's not a lot of ego being thrown around. Nobody has a ton of self-esteem issues. We're all happily married. So the chasing tail and drinking beer is not what rehearsal is all about.
Right.
And we've all been in a pro capacity to where, we've kind of been there and done that. We know how the motor works. So once it starts, it's a lot easier. Everybody kind of knows what they need to do. It's really enjoyable. And that's before you even get to the songwriting. And the songwriting is really where I think it shines. I mean, Greg and I have kicked some of these songs around that are on the record for, 8 years. So,
wow.
I told him on many occasions, Greg's one of my best friends. I love him to death. He's a great human being. but I've told him on many occasions, you know, if the songs weren't here, you and I'd still be, you know, meeting up at car shows and, you know, doing whatever. We're both muscle car fanatics, but the song why we're still playing together. And the material is the reason for this. And it kind of blows my mind a little bit. You know, he starts playing, we get in rehearsal, and he starts playing, and Ryan brings in a song, or Greg brings in a song. And I mean, I start hearing lyrics and melody, I mean, as soon as they start playing. And,
writing process, you just kind of glimpsed over, and I think we may have broke up a little bit. You started talking about how, you know, Ryan will just come in, or Greg will just come in, and they'll just start jamming, and all of a sudden it's, you know, is that usually kind of how it happens, or does someone maybe come in with an idea ahead of time, or?
Both. I mean, usually Greg or Ryan will come in with a riff or part of a song, and we'll start putting it together and start kind of hashing it out. Greg is really good at arrangement, so he kind of takes the producer through that, which I'm glad to let go of, because when we start recording, I'm engineering, and I wouldn't want to do that anyway. You know, Greg is more than capable of doing that, and a lot of people don't. I mean, when you listen to that Badlands stuff, there is there's a lot more of Greg in there than what you think there might be. There's, you know, that's Jake's gig for sure, but there's a lot of Greg in there, and he's really good at arrangement and good at kind of putting the song together and taking it where it needs to go. So we kind of follow that direction. I write the most or all of the lyric and melody, and so while they're hashing out what they're doing musically, I'm kind of, you know, listening and going through it, and then I'm usually writing on the spot. So it's a great process. And, you know, since all this pandemic crap happened, we're already about 12 songs into the new record. So
yeah, because I realized you released this new record, Kings of Dust, back in March, right? I think it was even on the day that everything got locked down, right?
March 13th. It was actually the day.
Oh, yeah. My God.
We absolutely timed it perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't have been any better, huh? Wow.
Right. The day they announced the lockdown is when the record came out. So awesome.
Right. Way to go, COVID. So I imagine that really dampened a lot of your plans for touring and supporting the album, the great album that you guys have out now.
Very much. And yet, in fact, all of them.
Yeah, all the plans, right? Jeez. So during, you know, the first couple of months, you guys had to be just, you know, what the hell did we do? Did you consider like online streaming or do anything like that, or?
Yeah, we talked about that, and we actually had a couple offers to do that were pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided early on. I mean, this band, we've never played a live show, honestly.
Oh,
never
okay.
In front of an audience, and you know, that's what the tour was for.
Yeah.
And we decided that, you know, a live streaming thing was not the way we wanted to walk out onto stage.
Got you.
We had been putting together the live show, and, you know, this would have been April or whatever it was, anticipating going on the road. I think it was like late May, early June. We had some like Oklahoma and Texas things and a couple of strings we were putting together. And when all this happened, and it looked like none of that was going to happen, we all kind of sat back and went, okay, well, we can kind of keep going through this set and just keeping it fresh until this thing goes away and then go back to it, or let's just start writing a new record. I mean, we can always material. So that's what we did. So in April, early May, we started writing, and we wrote pretty much all summer through the fall. We're taking a little break now, but yeah, we're 12 songs in. We wanted to have about, and then choose probably 8 for the new release. So we're just about there. We'll probably pick it back up, sometime in January, and then sometime this spring, we'll probably record the second record. And I'm really excited about that. And we'll tour on both records. Why not?
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, by the time people are, well, actually, your new record is doing well. I mean, you guys, it was only on CD for a while, but now it's digitally as well as of like a week ago, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, where can people find that digitally? Because I was having a little trouble.
Through Vanity Music Group and Sony Music. So, excuse me, most record stores are carrying it. I know, like, even some of the big box stores like Target and stuff have it.
Okay.
Most of your, mom and pop record stores, they'll have it for sure. If they don't ask for it, they can get it. But it should be in stock in CD form through most of that.
Okay.
Want a signed copy direct from the band or digital, you can go to our website, which is KOD.band, and you can download it straight from there. It goes straight to your phone. You get it in a couple of minutes. It's on the merch page, so you can obviously get the CD there. You can get T-shirts. You can get all the merch and the swag. But it's available in record stores on CD as well, and like I say, in the website digitally. And yeah, we didn't digital for a long time. Again, we were kind of waiting on touring, to pick up part of it, and then we just finally decided that, oh God, just get it out there.
Yeah, it may never end. Let's just go ahead and throw it out there. At least No, I mean, I think that's definitely the right move. Get it out there,
A lot of requests for it, and record itself has done phenomenally well. I mean, when you make a record, especially one with 13 songs on it, you make it for yourself first, and then you hope that people get it. And the reviews have just been off the chart. I mean, we've got a couple, record of the year ? Type things, and actually a couple of sites have put it up as record of the year.
Yeah.
Metal Bob, one of them. So that has just been, like I say, when you do that and people get it and there's a reason for it, and they really seem to get what you're doing, I mean, you can't really ask for more than that. So
definitely.
It's really been.
And you guys have such a great chemistry together. I've seen some of your YouTube videos where you guys are announcing stuff and you're all standing there and just kind of joking around with each other, and you could tell none of it is planned, or it's just so natural. And I was like, man, these guys must be a blast to hang out with. So yeah, I hope you guys get to get out and tour and go have some fun.
Oh, looking forward to that. I mean, this band really is a live band when you boil everything away. I mean,
yeah.
Before, the record is really just a vehicle to get to that. So I'm hoping we can run that vehicle here pretty soon. But yeah, like I said, everybody in the band is there's not a ton of ego being thrown around. There isn't, the fighting for the spotlight thing, it all happens pretty naturally. We've all got a weird sense of humor. You know, when Greg goes into Cowboy Greg,
I saw that.
And vice versa. When I think on the last one, we were talking about the digital thing, and he didn't know I was going to say it. It was it was totally unplanned. I said, yeah, because Greg is very old school. I mean, he's like the poster child for old school.
Right.
And I said, yeah, you can download it digitally, and it's so easy. Even Greg can do
it. Yeah, I saw that.
But he goes, is this how we're going to do this?
Yeah, I could see the interaction and the way you guys just hang out like brothers and all that. So that's definitely cool. Talk to me about some of the songs. Like an Ocean was one of my favorites that I was able to hear from your YouTube site.
That was a first release. We did a lyric video for it. God, I think it came out probably February or something.
Okay.
For the record, and it did really well. We kind of thought that one was the best single to kind of go out with. It kind of encompassed all the things that all the other songs did into one. Right. So we put that up there first. I really like it lyrically, the way I wanted to lyrically and vocally. Musically, I mean, the band just absolutely is on fire on that track. So the rhythm section, Jimmy has got such a great swing.
He does.
He and Greg just really lock it down, and the chordings that Ryan does between that, and like I say, that's pretty typical of who we are. He doesn't play on top of Greg. He doesn't play with Greg. It's more against. It's kind of a counter melody, which is what gives it that 70s feel.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say we tried to. We let that horse run. That's kind of where it wanted to go, and that's kind of where we all lived anyway. So it was a natural.
Yeah, as you should, because I mean that's the stuff. That's the music, man. The older stuff, that's the way to go.
It always seems to come across that way at some point or another. None of this is. I mean, the songwriting as a whole, we don't really worry about sticking to 3-minute, 30-second songs. It's got a very 70s feel, and we didn't shy away from that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Greg and Jimmy. That's the first thing I noticed when I listened to your band, because I'm a bass player, and I always go right to the rhythm section. Most people, I think, hear the guitar kind of first. They kind of concentrate on that, then they wait for the singer. I'm like hyper focused on the rhythm section right away, and I was like, wow, these guys are good. And then I heard, then I started listening to the guitar, and then you came in singing, and I was like, whoo, we got something here. So I'm just loving the new album. I'm gonna have to get a signed copy.
I hook you up.
I was kind of hinting at that, like maybe I can get him to hook me up with one, but no, that'd be great, man. Yeah, I
totally appreciate that. That's and honestly, that's the way I hear things too. As a singer, I don't really listen to the guitar player. I mean, I know that's kind of sacrilegious, but I kind of listen to it like you do. I kind of hear it peripherally. As a singer, through my whole career, I listen to the bass player. And I always have attributed that to in my mind, if I'm listening to the bass player and the bass player is locked in with the drums, then I'm more locked in with the rhythm. The guitar is usually a counter melody around what I'm doing. And, you know, my thinking has always been, if I'm locked in with the rhythm section and the guitar player is doing what they're supposed to be doing, then everything's locked in together. Where if I'm a guitar player, I might not be in that pocket. So again, once Greg and Jimmy start playing, as soon as that swing starts happening, stuff's coming out of my mouth as fast as I can write it down usually.
That's good stuff, man. So you've got, all right, well, what do we have left here? We're almost in January. They're thinking, I know shots are starting to be administered for COVID. Looks like maybe sometime in May or June, we may have some resemblance of normalcy. What are you guys planning on for? I mean, are you guys like, I know you've got a new album practically written already, but as far as, you know, your plans for when everything comes back, are you guys like ready to hit the ground running? You got everything all set?
Yeah, yes and no is the answer to that. I mean, obviously not being able to tour on a record takes away about 70% of your sales.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're kind of have this great problem in that we've got this record that everybody seems to like and is kind of critically acclaimed, and that's great, and go out and support it. So as far as the new record, the business side of it, we haven't really dove into that yet because there's no rush.
Right.
There hasn't been a lot of plans made for that yet. We thought, well, let's get the thing written. We go back into rehearsal probably in January. And we'll finish the last couple of songs and then come in and probably record all of them sometime in the spring. And, you know, pick probably the 8 that are going to go on we want to do a full length again, but there's been a lot of requests to put this out on vinyl. And would have loved it. Both Ryan and myself are both huge vinyl guys. So I really wanted this thing on vinyl. That's really what it was made for. That's where it's going to sound the best. It's really kind of made for that. But it's 13 songs. So unless we did, there was talk about doing like a gatefold release where we had a double album and all that stuff. And without the touring behind the sales, there wasn't enough for it to come together, which was pretty simple. So for this next record, we decided, okay, 40, 45 minutes is where we want to be, because the last one is like just over 60. So there's no way that it would fit on a slab. So we decided when we started writing this, let's write 15, let's pick, 8 or 9 or whatever it is. Let's get to that 40, 45. Let's make sure the next one can be on vinyl and has the opportunity to do that. And then who knows, sometime maybe in the future, we'll do a double disc that is a best of both records. That's kind of the thought right now. But the record that's out now, the self-titled one, is and I'm sure we're not the only band that's frustrated with it. We feel like it's got some legs to it still, and we're anxious to play the stuff live. But if a second record's there, and like you say, hopefully by May, we have some sort tour plans that we can actually put in place, and we'll just tour on both records. I'm not opposed to that, and I don't think anybody else is either.
No, no. In fact, I think with the lockdown and stuff, I think a lot of people, just, normal, everyday, average people that probably, a lot of people just have a lot more time on their hands. And I think a lot of people are discovering a lot of new music. And your band is definitely one of them. And the kids, all right, the new generation of kids, like my daughter, she's 18, and her and like everyone she knows, they don't just like one kind of music. They don't just, they're not just like rap guys or rock kids or only listen to Beyonce or jazz or anything. All the youth today, they listen to all kinds of music, like a wide variety. They have no, like, back in the day when I was a musician in a band, I was so laser focused on the bands, the kind of music I liked. I had this certain mold, right? And if you didn't fit that mold, you were terrible, you sucked, I didn't want to listen to you, right? So, but that sort of old guard musician kind of, oh, I'm better than him kind of things, it's all seems kind of gone to me. And the kids are responding to rock again. It's getting big. I mean, right before the lockdown, like we were talking about, there was a lot of big 80s bands that were getting ready to start touring, and all these different musics were kind of, the 80s was getting big. But just in general, I think after the lockdown, I think a lot of people started looking for new music. So
I think you're exactly right. I mean, there's been even before the lockdown, there was kind of this resurgence of 70s sounding bands,
yeah.
the Blackberry Smoke and Rival Sons and Fleet, and
yep.
We've kind of gotten thrown in that category a bit because of record. I'm not a that. I like all those bands a lot. Those are some of my favorite newer bands. Wolfmother, I love. But I think that we're coming at it maybe a little bit different in that, we're old enough to be their parents. So that filter of, that Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Bad Company filter isn't through us passed down a generation. It's a little more pure. It's a little more straightforward. And I'm not taking anything away from any of those bands, because like I said, I love all of them. I'm glad that sound is back. People give Greta Van Fleet a bunch of crap for stealing from Zeppelin. Who else are you going to steal from?
Right. I mean,
that's awesome. I would much rather hear a bunch of 20-somethings trying to emulate Zeppelin than anything Kanye West has ever done, ever.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Greta Van. Yeah, Greta Van Fleet. The first time I heard him, I was like, I think my response was probably like everybody else, like, okay, these guys are definitely trying to be Led Zeppelin. And I was just kind of like, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about this. They sound a little too much like them, But then, I heard a couple more songs and I was like, I kind of let that old guard down that I was talking about, that I have. And I'm just like, look, these are young dudes that want to sound like Zeppelin. I'm all for it. And I started listening as more of just the average listener. And I was like, wow, their songs are really good. And then I started listening, to the instrumentations and stuff. I'm like, all right, these guys are legit. So, I'm on board.
Back in the 80s, you had Kingdom Come and Fastway and, you know, White Snake, and there's a lot of Zeppelin in that stuff.
Yes.
So you know, do that, I don't think is out of bounds. I mean, if I listen to Rival Sons, that's very Bad Company to me. I mean, he is literally channeling Paul Rogers. God, I'm trying to do that too.
Right. I mean, if you could sound, you know, I don't know, like any singer in the world, why wouldn't you? I mean, do it. Like, if you could, if you could find a group of guys or two guys that sound just like John and Paul McCartney, and you guys sound like that when you sing, what are you gonna do? Shy away in your basement because we can't do that. We sound too much like somebody else. No, you do it. You know?
I mean, you know a singer that's striving to sound like Justin Bieber? Is there anybody that's striving to get that sound?
No, I was pointing to myself for the people listening on Apple and Spotify. No, I'm not trying to be Justin Bieber, but
absolutely. Yeah, even Justin Bieber is trying to be Paul Rogers. He just doesn't probably know it.
Right. Can I ask you a question? Because, you know, we're talking old school music and you're sitting in a recording studio. So I gotta ask you, you know, we're talking vinyl records, and I know you want your Kings of Dust band coming out on vinyl, because all of us would love that. Anyone but from back in our day that used to love records. We all want to see our stuff on vinyl. But regarding that recording, you know, back in the day, they'd be using the reel-to-reels, you know, totally different setup. They'd have limited tracks. What would they have? I don't know how many tracks, but the drummer would take up, you know, they'd have maybe 48, and the drummer would take up like 12 of those or whatever. And so it's a little more challenging recording wise, and just the overall sound with the tape versus the digital and all that. So basically the question is, you're recording digitally, and when you put that on a record, all right, is there, in your opinion, is there any difference in sound? Or are you still able to kind of capture that vintage record, old school sound digitally on a record?
Well, I have a pretty finite theory about that as an engineer. Now I'm switching hats from singer to being. Most of what, you know, I still get a lot of bands that come in and they want, or including Kings of Dust. I mean, we wanted a very analog sounding record for obvious reasons. But most of the time that a band comes in and wants a very analog sounding record, they think that they mean tape, but that really isn't what they mean. What they mean, what you think is tape, is really the console. So I'm getting a little technical here, but, you know, back then and still today, if you have a room, if you're going to record in a room that has, you know, a 24-track Studer, 2-inch tape or whatever, it's always got a console. And that console is the sound that you're hearing. The tape is definitely a sound, but it's not as much as the console. The drive of the fader is what you're hearing. That's the analog sound that you're hearing. And fortunately, you know, I mean, I'm a product of what I grew up with. So even though we have a Pro Tools rig and it is going in digitally, the front end of this studio is very analog. I have an SSL sidecar, which is a very old school, you know, 70s, 80s style console that I drive that signal into Pro Tools, and nothing goes into Pro Tools without hitting that console first. And so it's set up very much as a hybrid thing where, you know, you're hitting the console, but I'm really using Pro Tools like a tape machine with great editing. That's really what I'm doing. I'm not going in and recording with all the plugins and all that stuff. I have the hardware for all that and made sure that I did. There's a lot of tube gear. And the Kings of Dust record was made, and the next one will be too, very much in that fashion, in that most of the stuff that you hear on that record, especially the rhythm section, was all recorded live. Most all of it. There was punch there, as with anything else, but the rhythm guitar, the bass, and the drums, all of that was taken live. And most of it as a whole. I mean, I don't think we did 3 takes was kind of our rule. So I don't think we did more than 3 takes of anything. And most of those songs, I'll bet 90% of them are single takes all the way through. So it's definitely an old school way of doing it. That's kind of how I record anyway as a producer. But this went a little further. Again, we did that on purpose. It wasn't just to say that we did it. It was for a reason. I mean, Greg and Jimi are, when those 2 guys play together, there's something that happens between the 2 of them reacting to each other. And Ryan's rhythm guitar added in that as well. There's something that happens in that instance, the way they're reacting to each other in the moment, that you can't get if we tracked it out. And that's not always true. I mean, I do, you know, I've done 200 records as an engineer and a producer. And every time a band comes in the studio, that's part of my question is, you know, sometimes the bass player and the drummer, they don't play like that together. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. These 2 guys do that. If you can get a better take out of a live ensemble than you would if you were tracking it out, then absolutely that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my first time in a real studio. My brother, who was the drummer, I was the bass player. We tracked, it was 4 songs. We did them all one take. And I just had to go back and edit a couple little bad notes I did. But yeah, capturing that sort of a live sound, like you're talking about, capturing the energy of a live, you know, performance and getting that as on your CD. That's the way that the Beatles used to do it pretty much. They had limited time in the studio. They had to get the songs done, right? So they had they had to write them, perform them, record them, get them out on record as fast as they could. And look at their success, right? I mean, there's definitely something to, you know, trying to do it live, but rather as just one by one. You know, the drummer's going to come in one day, then the bass player will come in the next day, then the guitarist, then at the end you put the vocal. That's like a totally different process, and it does, in my opinion, lose something. You can kind of hear it when you're listening.
Definitely depends on the band, but at the very least, when I'm tracking a record for another band, I always have, even if the drummer is playing to a click and I know I'm really only going to keep the drums, I always have all the scratch stuff from the whole band in the drummer's ear to get that sort of performance out of him.
Right.
And I do the same thing with singers. I mean, when I do the vocals for Kings of Dust, and I do this with all the singers that come in that I work with. I always do usually 2 passes as a whole, as a front to back, because again, there's something, even if they're just in the other room with the headphones on, there's something that you get from a front to back pass that you don't get if you're taking it in small chunks. So when I record, I'll usually do the whole song front to back a couple of times. I'll edit some stuff from there and kind of what they call comping a vocal. So I'll comp a couple of tracks together so a couple of full passes, and so it's all there. And then I go in and, we'll maybe change this melody or change that melody or start punching in from that point. But it always starts with a full pass for sure. And that's a product of, I work that way because that's the kind of stuff I was listening to as I grew up, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that stuff. I love hearing all the recording secrets and the way things are done behind the scenes. It's all great stuff.
I can tell you a lot of the that I have in are like, what?
Right.
Getting them to that point after they hear it, they're like, oh, that's why he's doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. It's the way to go. So when you're not doing music with your band, or you're not recording in the studio, what are some of the leisure activities of a Michael Beck?
I am so when it comes to that. I've been married to my wife for over 30 years. So I actually enjoy spending time with her, which is, I know, kind of unheard of coming from a singer. So I spend a lot of time at home. I'm big into muscle cars. So I have my 74 Camaro that's in my garage, and I do a lot with that. Like I said, Greg's big into muscle cars too. He has a 70 Charger. So we meet up at times for car shows and stuff like that. That's kind of my, go-to happy place when I'm not here.
Definitely.
I get behind the wheel of a muscle car. That's my happy place.
That works, man. That's great. Well, hey, man, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm going to leave links for all of your websites and stuff for your studio and for your band in the descriptions for YouTube. And everyone else, just go to KOD.com. KOD.band. KOD.band. Sorry, everybody. KOD.band. It'll be in the description. So thank you again, Michael, and Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Happy New Year, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Hey, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it, and so glad you're enjoying the record, and Happy Christmas to everybody out there, and hopefully I will see you in 2021.
We sure hope so, man. And when you do start touring, you better come to Chicago, because I want to be there.
Reggie's, absolutely.
Reggie's. I can go to Reggie's, definitely.
That's one of the places you're not banned from, is that right?
That's right. That's right. They fall for my disguises, They can't tell who I am, so they let me in.
Whatever works, man.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon. Peace out.
Thanks so much.
See ya.